Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies, recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Madeline.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music happens to be what brings us together. But movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we have created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on TikTok, if it still exists, and definitely still on Instagram, at Sleepless Cinematic Pod for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, which is foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle of movies featuring Oscar winners in the Best Supporting Acting categories from years past, with an episode category we call Mise Unseen, where the three of us watch a film that none of us have seen before and discuss our impressions and main takeaways from a first viewing.
And the film that we have chosen to discuss for this episode is Dreamgirls.
Yeah.
2006 musical drama starring Jamie Foxx, Beyonce, Eddie Murphy, and notably our best supporting actress of choice for this episode, Jennifer Hudson.
Chicago represent.
She gets
Yes.
the introducing in the final credits.
That's true.
And even though, we'll get into this a little more later on, but even though she was awarded for a supporting role, in a lot of ways, it really feels like she's kind of the star of the movie.
We will definitely talk about this.
We'll talk about that for sure.
Supporting being a subjective term.
Right. I should say, though, Dreamgirls is not to be confused with the film Dream a Little Dream, which is a film from 1989 starring both Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. It's a romantic comedy of sorts. I saw this at the video store a long time ago. I don't remember much about it. All I'll say is it's very different than Dreamgirls, so do not confuse it with that film.
Yes, and another very different film from Dreamgirls, but with a similar sounding name that we should not confuse it with, is Showgirls.
That's true.
The Paul Verhoeven film from 1995, erotic drama starring Elizabeth Berkley, Kyle MacLachlan, and many others. I think one of the most famous examples of a absolutely panned movie upon release that has gotten some cult status in the years since.
Yeah.
I do know that Paul Verhoeven was one of the few people decent enough to accept a Golden Raspberry Award in person.
I gotta say, I heard
for this movie.
I heard some very troubling things about how he backed out of a lot of the publicity tour for that film, and apparently
trying
left
to distance himself.
Exactly, and apparently left Elizabeth Berkley to kind of flail in the wind in her first starring role.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, which is very, very tough. So it's kind of weird that he would accept a Razzie.
Well, it feels
not
almost,
do that.
Based on those details, it seems kind of righteous that, if he's going to accept an award for failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this film also just shouldn't be confused with Girls, the HBO series created by and starring Lena Dunham. Yeah, there are a lot of things with Dream and or Girls in the title.
Yeah.
So there are many things this could be confused with.
Yeah, I would say, too, we should not confuse Dreamgirls with All the Real Girls, which is a film from 2003. I remember when this movie came out, this is a video store release. I never got around to it, but it's from writer-director David Gordon Green, who has had quite the career since. It stars Patricia Clarkson, Zooey Deschanel, Paul Schneider. It's not a musical, and there's not really that much about music. Do not confuse it with Dreamgirls.
Yeah, so that's All the Real Girls?
That's correct.
Which is not to be confused with Lars and the Real Girl.
Yeah, which I hadn't written down, but as soon as you said yours, Emilio, I was like, oh, there's another one.
Yeah.
Yes, but we're talking about a lot of things that nearly rhyme or do rhyme with Dreamgirls. But one movie that does not rhyme but still could be confused potentially with it is 20 Feet from Stardom, the Morgan Neville-directed documentary film from 2013, which is about backup singers.
Yeah.
And, Dreamgirls, we'll get into it more, but it's about 3 singers who initially are positioned as backup singers who quickly become the stars of their own show. But yeah, not to be confused with.
Very good point. Yeah, we are indeed talking Dreamgirls, based on a musical from the early 1980s that was a huge hit and has seen a couple revivals since.
Mhm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what happens in Dreamgirls.
Go for it.
So it's 1962, and we meet the Dreamettes, Effie, Dina, and Laurel. They are a trio of young Black female singers who are looking for their big break at a talent competition in Detroit. And it's there that they catch the eye of Curtis Taylor Jr., who's a used car salesman moonlighting as a talent scout in the burgeoning music business. He sees promise in this young singing group and convinces them to be the backing vocalists for Jimmy Thunder Early, who's a more established singer and performer on the Chitlin circuit. The Dreamettes suddenly see their dreams of success in the music industry start to take shape, and Curtis uses his faith in them and his personal entanglements with them as well as a springboard of sorts to launch himself fully into music, showing that he's not afraid to visit the bad side in order to do so.
Or step into it.
Exactly. Step into it. Thank you. Before long, the Dreamettes are repackaged as the Dreams, and the realities of the music business, some the result of predominantly white gatekeepers, and others the requests and impositions of Curtis and his underlings, really test Effie, Dina, and Laurel, pulling them apart as the years pass, and the professional and personal lives of all of these characters are set to music and dance. That is Dreamgirls.
Do you guys think that the Dreams is a better name for this girl group, or the Dreamettes? Because they changed to the Dreams, as you said.
I know what you mean.
I kind of feel like Dreamettes I like better, maybe?
This is taking me back to that thing you do where it's like the Oneaters versus the Wonders.
Exactly.
I mean, I would say the Oneaters is definitely worse than the Wonders.
Well,
but if it's the
but it's more
Wonders,
memorable.
right. But I'm not gonna lie. Jimmy's insistence trying to really make Wonders, O-N-E, a thing.
It's funny.
I kind of like it.
I think it reads better than it's spoken.
Of course.
I get why they end up going just with the plain word wonder in that movie. But,
but to answer your question, I kind of agree.
I like Dreamettes.
I don't know why the Dreams feel a little too ambiguous.
A little too general.
It's a little too
stale.
general. Yeah. An adjective that I would not use to describe their energy in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they are a high-powered group of women.
They're not
really
a sleepy group, and just from hearing Dreams, you might think they would be pretty low energy.
Yeah, this is true.
You might think a little more of like the Everly Brothers. Dream. But like one of the things that you have to consider in name selection is that the Supremes was already taken.
That is true.
And I mean, I think from afar, before watching or even learning some surface level stuff about the movie Dreamgirls, I think from afar, I just assumed it was a biopic about the Supremes.
Yeah, I knew that it was inspired by the story of the Supremes, but I did not know how much Motown history is so tied to this movie.
And how like every character has a real life analog.
For the most part, I think some of them are... I think some characters
some of them
kind
are
of
like
are
amalgamations.
Yeah. But I would totally agree that there are characters in here that seem very connected to the larger story of Motown taking off and the kind of trajectory that Motown took. So I was not ready for that actually. And I thought I knew something about this show, to be brutally honest.
But also some of those characters, even though they have real life analogs, they do stretch the truth.
Definitely.
Like some aspects of their stories as shown in the film are different from what happened to the real people.
But I think that's why this film is not pretending to just be a biopic, as you said, and that allows it to go in different directions.
Yeah. I also just think that the conceit of a musical makes it kind of hard to be like a biopic.
Yeah.
The extravagance is going to heighten any reality.
Yeah.
For the intention to create something that is going to feel more evocative than just sort of like, well, this happened, then this happened, then this happened.
Yeah. It's funny to consider this because actually, like, I have never seen a production of Dreamgirls on Broadway, but I have seen a production of Motown the Musical about 10 years ago, almost to the day. Was on a high school field trip. And that's a little bit more of like a very straightforward telling of that history. You get people playing the Supremes, of course, but you also get Smokey Robinson, the Temptations, Stevie Wonder, the Jackson 5. I believe there had to have been a Marvin Gaye there. So yeah, that's more of like the compendium of Motown history in a musical form. Dreamgirls is a much more specific story.
Yeah.
I started by saying that I thought I knew more about this movie than I did because I had a little bit of past exposure to some of the numbers from this musical. One of my wife's castmates in one of her Broadway shows, her name is Marisha Wallace, has had an incredible career overseas. She is one of the current torchbearers of the Effie White character.
Very cool.
So I had a chance to see a bunch of her numbers performed and just take in the awe of all of that. And so I felt like I had a better handle on this. At the same time, you have all of these, we used the term analogs before. Like one character that kind of hit me right away was Effie's brother, Cece. Yeah, who's played by Keith Robinson. I definitely saw him as a composite of a couple of people because he comes in as the songwriter.
Yeah.
And Motown had a couple of really specific songwriters. I think some people might point to somebody like Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
That being said, Cece is not a performer himself, and that was a distinction that Smokey Robinson had in the Motown stable. There's Holland Dozier Holland, which is the triumvirate of dedicated writers and arrangers that Motown had. And so I saw him way more as like a Lamont Dozier.
Okay.
And the other one, I saw him actually choreographing some stuff. And I know that it's a musical, but that was very much a part of the Motown ecosystem.
Yeah.
And Charles Atkins, who was known as Charlie Atkins, was there on staff at Motown. You know, they were trying to sort of package these groups in really particular ways. You see a little bit of that in the beginning of the movie, but you really see that take shape when Curtis gets the Motown analog Rainbow Records off the ground.
Yeah.
And so, I saw, the CC character embodying that. Another character that I thought was kind of an amalgam of characters throughout the film was Jimmy Early. Because, he starts, I think, as being something of like a James Brown, Wilson Pickett type.
For sure.
But then as the movie goes on...
He kind of evolves.
Yeah. He's sort of meant to, I think, represent a little bit of the Marvin Gaye at some point. Yeah. And then I would say ultimately like David Ruffin. From The Temptations.
Interesting.
Yeah.
His ultimate fate in the movie, I think, is a direct correlation to that of David Ruffin. So
and there's that one scene where he's recording the song "Patience," where he's wearing a cap.
Oh yeah,
that's like almost
Dougie was like,
identical to what Marvin
Gaye. That's the Marvin Gaye hat.
Yeah, it's like what's going on era Marvin Gaye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any initial other thoughts from you guys?
I mean, I think I had very little knowledge of what the plot of this film was. Dreamgirls has been a big blind spot for me, even though I'm very into musicals. It's just not one I ever really got around to seeing. And so I knew some of the songs. I remember when Jennifer Hudson won the Oscar, definitely knew, and I'm telling you, I'm not going pretty well. But I think that's kind of all I knew is like that's a big number. I had forgotten Beyonce was in this until I picked up the Blu-ray from the library. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So I was coming in pretty fresh, personally.
Yeah, I was coming in pretty fresh too. I mean, there were like some surface level things that I knew. I mean, this song Dreamgirls, I remember like seeing commercials for the movie when it was out in theaters, and I remember just kind of remembering sound bites from that one song. But I didn't know any of the other songs in the movie. And I just, I knew from afar that this was like the career making role for Jennifer Hudson too.
Yeah.
Like I knew like surface level things about the movie, but I had next to no sense of what it was actually going to be like to watch it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, watching this movie was a lot of fun. I got to say, reflecting on this movie put me in an unusually personal headspace, which I'll get into in just a little bit. But I'm curious for you guys on this first watch. I noticed, Dreamgirls is about a lot of stuff. It touches on a lot of different things. We were saying, it's a musical. It's a movie about R&B music. It also is positioned in this era of change in U.S. history. So like the 1960s, civil rights, Vietnam War era. I'm just curious if there was anything that was in this movie that kind of scratched some sort of itch for you guys. And if you felt like it was conveying any of these types of interests in movie form in a way that was like cool and exciting for you guys.
I would say that a lot of my exposure to and appreciation of musicals is a relatively recent development in my life. It's not a genre that I feel like has been super deeply entrenched for me in my years as a watcher. Granted, there are many movie musicals I've seen before this current era of my life, but it still just wasn't the most abundant genre. I think I kind of only knew classics like The Sound of Music or West Side Story. But I think that the most satisfying element of watching this movie for me was its effectiveness as a musical. This is not a, I try to say this as uncritically as possible, but I think if you look at pure narrative in the movie, if you're looking at that, stripping away all the musical numbers and the spectacle of it, it could probably feel pretty thin. And I think that the musical numbers just really add a lot to the experience of watching it. And even sometimes the songs, it's what they're communicating might be a very transparent, unsubtle message, but I think the mode of delivery really struck me a lot of the time. That, I think, was the biggest selling point for me watching it. That was what really made the experience for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the music in this is fantastic. There are some of the best vocalists in the world, like of all time, are in this movie. When you look at like Beyonce and Jennifer Hudson, at the very least, Anika Noni Rose like sings her face off. She's the only one to sing live, by the way.
Interesting.
Didn't know that.
She comes from Broadway, so I think I think that all of the vocalists in this, all three of them, do their best emoting and their best acting when they're singing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I think particularly for her, as somebody that has had the two combined for so long as like a Broadway actor, I think it felt most natural for her to be able to sing live.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah.
But honestly, I expected this film to resonate with me more than it did. I'm still kind of processing. Like I said, I generally love musicals, and I went into this really excited, and I had a good time. I think because the music is so good, and the performances are generally very good. I know you're talking about like if you strip away the music, then the story may feel lacking. I feel like you can't really separate the two. Like I feel like I needed a little bit more characterization, a little bit more of a narrative that, I don't know. There was something I think in the screenwriting and something in the directing that made me feel like there were kind of these gaps in what I wanted out of this movie. I was kind of confused about everyone's relationships with each other. I was confused about a lot of people's motivations beyond we want to be successful. That's just kind of my initial thoughts. I don't know that necessarily answers your question, Emilio.
No, totally. I mean, I'm curious too, because I don't know the stage musical very well.
I don't either.
And I feel like sometimes in musicals, a lot of these things are kind of taken for granted.
Yeah.
I would agree with both of you in some ways that I felt like the story was at times kind of thin. I did feel like the love triangle that was set up between Effie and Curtis and Dina, I was really missing the Dina component of it when things got really real.
Yeah.
I would have liked a little bit more, I think, than what the movie gave us.
We see a lot of flirtation between Effie and Curtis, but then it kind of seems like they've become like an exclusive couple, and we don't really see them making any kind of commitment to each other. And so I was kind of confused as to why. Like, I really liked I Love You, I Do as a song. It's like maybe one of my favorite songs in this movie. And I think Jennifer Hudson sings it so well. But when we get to that, and I'm like, you barely know this man. Like he's been doing a lot for your career, but we haven't really seen them interact on a personal level outside of working on their music. So I was confused also by their relationship.
I remember thinking that while watching too, that they drop it on you pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, it is set up right away.
Yeah.
There is that flirtation between
There's
them.
always flirtation. I think it was the transition into we're supposedly in an exclusive relationship now, and it's like you're betraying me if you go after my friend is like kind of confusing.
Totally. I don't have the greatest personal handle myself on how much grace I give a movie for a move like that.
Yeah.
Because I do think that sometimes musicals do make these decisions where you're like, yep, we're going to ask you to accept this or take the jump with us so that this next musical number can really work.
Yeah.
Love You, I Do is a good example of that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that happened for me was this movie just kind of reminded me of how I have had a really interesting personal history with Motown and R&B. Mm-hmm. We've mentioned him before on this podcast, but I'm going to give him a proper shout out. My buddy Drew Schultz, who's an incredibly good friend, also maybe just one of the most influential people that I've had in my life. When I met him my freshman year, it was probably like the first week or two in our dorms. He told me the Four Tops is my favorite band.
Cool.
And we hit up a friendship partly because he knew that I loved oldies music, and I came to learn that he didn't just love oldies music. This is like all this guy lived to do.
He lives oldies music.
He lives oldies music. The other thing I'll say is, so, we met, we were 18 years old, and he said the Four Tops is his favorite band. Well, when he was 21, he became their touring drummer.
That's very cool.
It was an incredibly cool thing to see happen, and it couldn't have happened for a better person. But Drew really just gave me the most incredible education about Motown.
Mm-hmm.
He has like the most encyclopedic brain about this, and that's actually one of the things that Drew does now. His day job is that he's the digital media curator and historian for Motown and for the Motown Museum. And so watching this, I just immediately was flooded with all these memories of learning about Motown, learning about the lightning in a bottle aspect of how that came together. I was hearing songs from this musical, and I was getting other ones that were coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, some of the songs in this are great. Some of them are kind of forgettable.
Totally. I agree. I think there are some duds.
Yes. When I first saw you, nice song, but it immediately reminded me of a song called I Believe in You and Me, which I would just say is like one of the best love songs ever written. I'll just use that as an example of how this movie reminded me of some really incredible stuff that came out of Motown. And so for the last couple of days, I've just been on a huge Motown kick.
Love that.
So I just want to shout out Drew. Thank you. Because I think the education that you gave me about Motown was something that helped me appreciate this movie with a little bit of time. Maybe it doesn't help me appreciate everything that I was seeing, but everything that is reflected in the spirit of the movie.
Yeah. Great. And while we're on this topic and talking about Drew's job specifically, I should mention I have been to the physical location of the Motown Museum.
It's awesome.
It's amazing place. Worth taking the trip to Detroit just to go there.
Absolutely.
So you get to go into the studio where they recorded all the classic songs. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
The Snake Pit.
The Snake Pit, yes.
Very cool.
Like, it's not a physically big space, too. It's like kind of amazing how much they were able to do in a rather contained physical environment.
Yeah.
I visited that museum when I was early on in college, and like late high school and early on in college for me was like a period when I kind of had a Motown kick then too.
Yeah.
Like Stevie Wonder was probably the biggest artist of that particular kick for me, but there were certain songs by Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, The Supremes that if you're going to, even just like dip your feet lightly into Motown, you have to know.
100%.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit about this as a movie musical, as an adaptation of a stage show. And we've covered several movie musicals, some of which are adaptations of stage shows, including Grease and more recently, Wicked.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious as to what you guys think maybe some of the challenges are to adapting a stage show, particularly a stage musical, to the screen. Because we've already kind of talked about how with musicals, we may give it grace for like moving along with this thing or like not really having clear motivations because the music kind of adds that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what are maybe some of the other challenges that come from adapting a musical? And do you think Dreamgirls does it successfully?
Well, I think that whenever I watch a movie musical, I always get caught up on the editing. I feel like that must be such a challenging task for a film editor to do.
Yeah.
There's just so many little things you have to look after in the physical choreography, even in just a stage show. To think about like filming all of that, all the breaks you have to do to get the camera set up for that and to edit it. It just sounds like mountains upon mountains of work.
Yeah.
And this movie was actually made quite efficiently based on its timeline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really seemed like it was cast, filmed, and then edited in like around a year's time, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I think they have 60 days to film. They do spend quite a long time in pre-production with a lot of rehearsals and then doing the pre-recordings of all the songs and choreography and all of that before they even start shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, still 60 days to me is this. I would not put it on like Whiplash level, but considering what is going on in this movie, it's still quite the feat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking of Whiplash too. But with Whiplash, I mean, you can, like, if you look carefully at some of the details of its production, you can see the more modest means.
Whereas
course.
this has
Yeah.
such a broad scope.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Since I'm not very familiar with the stage production, it's
Yeah.
really hard for me to know what is gained or lost
Yeah,
by seeing it now as a film.
definitely.
To your point, Madeline, there was more in the narrative that
Yeah.
I felt like was kind of missing, and maybe even a little bit more in the music.
Yeah.
But as like a visual experience, I actually thought this was kind of nice. Like
Yeah.
it really came together for me. So
Yeah, the costumes are beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of really good sets, like a lot of the theaters that they film in are really, really beautiful as well. Great choreography most of the time. Yeah, I think it's a great movie to look at.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
The writer director of Dreamgirls is this guy Bill Condon.
Mhm.
The musical that he had a huge hand in before this was Chicago.
Yeah.
And that was an enormous hit.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, watching Dreamgirls and having a fairly good recollection of how Chicago felt,
Yeah.
they feel very similar
Yeah.
in regards to the editing, the pacing. I think also sometimes the way the camera moves. It was a very mid 2000s
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
movie musical. Like this was a spare no expense type production. It felt, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, well, you mentioned other movie musicals of around that time, and I was in just reading about the reception of Dreamgirls. There were some ones in the years leading up to it, films like The Phantom of the Opera,
Mhm.
Rent, or The Producers, that I'm sure they all have robust fan bases, but that critics were not as fond of, and it kind of went the other way for Dreamgirls. They thought, okay, this is a much more effective adaptation. Even coming in fresh to the movie, I felt like it translated the feeling of watching a certain type of musical very well to the screen, not just in like the visual splendor and things like that, but I felt like the pacing of it felt very akin to what you would see in an actual Broadway show.
I agree with you. I actually think that's a flaw of the film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
None of us have seen the stage show. But when you watch a movie adaptation of a musical, you don't want it to just make you feel like you're going to see a musical on stage. That's
Good
not
point,
what I
yeah.
want out of a movie musical. I want it to like not necessarily improve on the experience, but it's a different experience. And
Yeah.
I felt like this movie, it does a bit of like the yada yada, where it kind of skips over parts. I do have an issue with the fact that this movie doesn't like that it just skips over any details in the narrative, like almost constantly. It just wants you to sustain on vibes, which like kind of works, but I think also doesn't in some ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there are some leaps you kind of have to make. The character of Effie and Jennifer Hudson in that role, she's kind of the through line of the movie.
Yeah.
And so the movie kind of rests a lot on her dynamic with all of the characters. You were
Yeah.
talking about her relationship with Curtis. I also think that the introduction of her having a daughter
Yeah.
felt a lot like what you'd see on stage.
Oh yeah.
Oh, time has passed and suddenly she has a kid.
That time jump is so clearly like this is where the intermission was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fine. I don't necessarily need to see that much in between. We get a little bit of one of the many montages where it's like, here's the success of Dina and the dreams minus Effie. And I kind of like how they do that. And then it's like, and then let's catch up with Effie. Like, how's she doing? I don't have an issue with that. I thought that was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm still thinking about what you said, Madeline, about how like that translation of the pacing of a Broadway musical can take away from it as a film. And then, of course, I'm thinking, you already mentioned Wicked.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how that movie, by adding a little bit to its runtime, that it takes these scenes that would be so much quicker in the stage production and gives them a little more space where
Yeah.
you can feel the emotions, which I think is a strength of that movie.
Exactly. And I don't want Dreamgirls Part 1 and 2.
Right.
I don't think that's necessary. But I do think that Wicked is so successful in giving you space and holding space
Yes.
for emotion. And I don't think that this movie ever really gives you the opportunity to do that unless it's in a song,
Yeah.
which might be enough.
My understanding, there's about a half an hour of deleted scenes.
Which is
on the
interesting
documentary.
because the difference between the theatrical cut and the director's cut on the DVD is only like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that there's way more deleted scenes.
Yeah,
And not
and-
even the director wanted it.
right. It's funny too. I didn't really think about this until just now, but there's a bit of fan service that happens.
Mhm.
Obviously, when they released this movie, I think they were trying to make a movie that if you knew nothing about Dreamgirls or hadn't seen the stage production, not too much unlike our experience going into the film, that we would see something that we would really enjoy or see something that we could follow. But I also wonder if there was a bit of a feeling by the filmmakers that there was something they could leave out if people were familiar with the show.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, and I do think that probably the deleted scenes add some extra context that may or may not have been part of like the vision of what they wanted. And that's why it kind of goes back to the screenplay for me. Like if you look at, for example, I was thinking of Effie's arc of her pregnancy, which she says something about like not feeling well, and you see a quick shot of her in a doctor's office.
Right.
And that I think is enough to just tell you that she's pregnant.
Right.
I assume we all got that. I was like, as
yeah.
a woman, I see a woman in the 1960s in a doctor's office,
Yeah.
and I'm like, she's pregnant.
So I gotta admit, because I knew that this was a Florence Ballard
Yeah,
correlation here,
it could have been.
that I thought that it might have been something related to alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was my first thought. And then
Yeah.
when the daughter was introduced,
You're like, oh,
I was like,
that's it.
oh, okay, maybe that's what it is.
But so I think
Yeah.
take that I read it as this is fairly clear.
Yeah.
But it apparently wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe not necessarily.
But that's also because
Colored
of my
by, like,
own
your-
history of kind of knowing the Supremes and what happened with them and how this
Yeah.
movie is also trying to take that in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that there are ways that don't actually add much to the runtime to make things like that a little more clear. And we don't even necessarily need clarity, but at this point, we don't even necessarily know that she's been physically intimate with Curtis.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't want us to know that. Maybe they do want to leave it open-ended. Again, I see a woman in a doctor's office in the 1960s, and I'm like, it's clear what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that take I Love You, I Do. I'm not saying add another montage to this, but I feel like you could add a montage where you see a little bit more of them alone together.
And another plot line where I have a similar thought is in the relationship between Jimmy Early and Laurel.
Yeah.
Because like there's one scene early on when they're all on the tour bus together and you see they're sitting with each other in the back seat, and Jimmy, who is married, is starting to get intimate with Laurel, and she pushes back at him because of him being married.
And then she seems to get over it pretty quickly.
Yeah,
She
you
does.
don't
Yeah.
you don't really see her get over it. They're just
Yeah.
back together in a later
Exactly.
scene. Yeah.
Right.
But I want this woman to have some kind of agency. And like when we see her make the choice of, I don't want to be with this man, and then we see the man saying, I'm going to be with her anyway, and then we see them together.
Of course,
that,
yeah.
That does, I think, rub me kind of the wrong way because we don't see her really make an active choice to be with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I would say too that as the movie unfolds, I think her relationship with him is also a little
It's complicated.
paper thin.
It's messy.
It's
Yeah.
very messy, but it's also kind of thin.
I was personally shocked that they were still together after the time jump because he seems to be drawn to her because she's really beautiful. They're all really beautiful, Laurel included. I don't really know why he latched onto her as like a long-term like affair
Side
partner
piece or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
I definitely thought, particularly when the movie kind of starts with he's done this before,
Right.
and he continues to try to hit on his backup singers,
Right. Yeah.
that it was kind of confusing to me that he saw her as more than a conquest. I'm like glad for her because I think she's great and I think she like deserves somebody to care for her. I think she deserves better than Jimmy
Sure,
and like
yeah.
deserves to be with a man who's not married.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was confused after the time jump that they were still hooking up, even though he was still married.
Right.
Because I'm like, what was it about her that made him want to be in a long-term relationship?
Honestly, that to me feels, again, I've not seen the musical. I'm projecting a little bit. I do think it's very possible that the musical isn't really asking you or isn't giving it to you either.
Yeah.
And it that is a detail too that I think in a musical I completely believe you wouldn't get.
Yeah.
Like it's just
totally
like, oh yeah,
agree.
look, there they are. Now in a movie, as you were saying before, where with the opportunity to give you a little bit more, then maybe it is what you want.
This movie, and I assume the original musical, it tries to tell a lot of different stories.
Yeah.
It focuses on a lot of different characters who, like, several of them have tragic endings. Like Jimmy dies by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert for this movie that we're talking about that you're listening to a podcast about. And that's very tragic. And I don't feel like I felt enough because I don't know that I spent enough time with Jimmy and his struggles with addiction.
Yeah.
It's not introduced until the second half. We see him with drugs maybe twice. And I'm not saying you necessarily need to spend more time on it. I feel like when it's that, and then it's Effie, and then it's Dina, and then it's Cece, and then it's a lot of characters.
You know what just hit me? And maybe this is just my own response to this, but I said watching this brought back very real, tangible memories of the actual history of Motown and my own personal relationship with some of the music. I think that this movie is trying to make some of those relationships that you might have with this music do the heavy lifting.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you know anything about David Ruffin and the Temptations, you see that the second half of the movie, Jimmy Early is the story of David Ruffin.
Yeah.
He got into drugs. He had a falling out with the kind of musical partnership that he had. There was a part of him that wanted it back, and that he dies an untimely death, ostensibly a broken man.
Yeah.
And so if you are a fan of the Temptations and you know this about David Ruffin and you see the arc that this character has, you're imprinting a lot of your personal history, the type of emotions that hearing David Ruffin sing Since I Lost My Baby, or I Wish It Would Rain, or any number of other songs that he's famous for having sung, and what that does for you. And you watch this movie and you see that happen, and you go, wow, it fills in a lot of the emotional gaps.
And that's beautiful. And I'm glad that you kind of got that. And I'm sure a lot of other people got that.
I didn't get that until we were talking about it. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, that makes more sense.
I just feel like that's a really big ask for general audiences from a DreamWorks Paramount $80 million Oscar bait movie.
Sure.
To say, you have to have this pre-existing knowledge of the history of Motown to fully connect with these characters.
Well, and I didn't fully connect with it either.
But
not to mention that this is, David Ruffin is a single member of a band that is famously, 4 or 5 members?
5, yeah.
Yeah, who are not as much identified by their individual personas as much as a group.
Right.
So yeah, that is a pretty big ask, if appreciating those scenes, if that's contingent on knowing about the history of David Ruffin, that is, I concur, a pretty big ask of the audience to know that. And it made me think too that because this is a movie that deals with the history of individual people during a oft-discussed period of U.S. history, that sometimes in history movies you just get the scene just gets dropped, and it's sort of assumed that if you know a little bit about this, you'll understand why it's important.
Yeah.
There's a real big moment in this movie where that happens.
Yeah.
Effie has a fight with Curtis and steps out of the
Detroit riot.
And exactly, totally. Which
that
a little shoehorned in there.
It's shoehorned in. It's glossed over, and I'm just gonna leave it there.
Cool, that's fine.
Yeah, but I think that's a problem that certain movies, sometimes they're biopics, sometimes they're just about history in general, but that's a pitfall that they can have that can come across in a movie like Dreamgirls too.
Sure. We brought up Wicked a little bit before. We are living in a wicked world. It being December of 2024 that we're recording this. And I could not help but think of, and I'm telling you I'm not going, as occupying a similar space as Defying Gravity in Wicked. It is the Act 1 closer, but I also think that it's this very pivotal emotional plot point that unlocks the second act of the stage production,
Yeah.
second half of the film. And I was wondering if there are any more similarities there between these two centerpiece musical numbers, as it relates to the larger stories that they tell. I'm just slightly curious.
Well, for one thing, just to talk about the visceral experience of listening to or watching either one. I mean, I was watching Dreamgirls in modest means. I was watching it with headphones on my computer, and seeing Jennifer Hudson's performance in that scene, like, I got chills and tears welled up in my eyes. It's oh my God, it's incredible.
I'm very glad that you felt that way.
And I mean, to give credit where it's due, I felt similar. The first time I ever heard Defying Gravity in full, I felt similar, as I also felt watching Cynthia Erivo sing it in Wicked Part 1. Yeah, I think the visceral experience it has those similarities. Yeah, I mean, in terms of like narrative placement, there is just, in terms of like the feelings, the emotions that guide the characters when they get into these songs, I feel like there is just this sense of like enough that they are both, that Effie and Elphaba, very similar names, are both dealing with, or it's just kind of like, in Wicked, it's Elphaba being like, the wizard is a con man, and there's also a sense of, coming into her own powers too. Yep. And in Effie's case, I mean, it's, there is like
the sense of Curtis maybe being a con man as well.
Yeah. And that she's breaking away from the group at that time too.
Although she's actively saying she's
the
not.
Exact opposite. I'm sorry.
Right.
I have to jump in here because I so strongly disagree.
I mean, I was thinking of that too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I wanted to have the reaction that you had watching the scene. I felt nothing. Perhaps I have a black heart. I felt way more watching her audition tape.
Oh, that's interesting.
Way more. And I think it's just the rawness of what Jennifer Hudson brought to the audition tape that just felt like dampened to me in the film itself. And I think it's because when you listen to the lyrics of this song and the theme of this song, she's not coming into power. I think the theme runs completely contrary to Defying Gravity.
Well, I feel the same.
Yeah.
It's somebody who's having a fall from grace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas like Elphaba is coming into her power, as you said, Julian, like she has discovered that the wizard who she's looked up to her entire life is a con man. Whereas Effie is saying to this man that we know is a con man, I've heard this song for 20 years, and then I watch it in the movie, and I'm like, this guy sucks, and he does not deserve you.
This song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this song of I am going to stay with you because you're the best man I've ever known is sung to this guy is all I could feel. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's why I can watch this out of context and listen to the song out of context and enjoy it a lot more. And then when it's directed at Curtis, I'm like, it loses it for me, 100%.
One reading I had of her like saying you're the best man I've ever known is I'm remembering that like Effie is still a young character at this point in the movie, and that like, I think, it's fair to say that this could be the best man that she's known in her life. That doesn't make him a good man.
I mean, just because it's accurate, like, doesn't mean he deserves this amount of love for her.
That's also a
from
good point.
her, though.
I mean, I think, again, my initial reaction to it was on the visceral experience.
And I am really glad that you felt that way, and I kind of
Thanks.
wish I could have felt that way.
But I would be remiss if I didn't say that I thought some of those same narrative quibbles as I was watching it too. Funny enough, actually, I mean, you said the audition tape that affected you more. That was the one where I felt like it just didn't really land for me. Like, I watched it in the movie first, and also with no existing relationship to the song.
I feel like I fall a little bit in between for you guys.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy. It does not take a rocket scientist or somebody with any type of degree in music to listen to Jennifer Hudson's character sing and listen to her sing and have it not just be pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to be really clear that I think her vocal performance is phenomenal, and that's part of why I loved the audition tape so much, because it's clear that she's singing it live,
Right.
and like just to a piano.
Well, so what you just said there, singing it live, and this is actually something that I had a problem with when I was watching Wicked. I have seen enough versions of Defying Gravity that are sung live. I will take those anytime, any day over what I saw in the movie.
Well,
and it is not
in Wicked?
In Wicked, yes.
They're singing live in Wicked.
What I'm saying is without all of the extra effects and the kind of sweeteners that get put over
there's more
the
production.
Track. There's a lot more production. And I'll be really honest, a song like, and I'm telling you I'm not going, to me is entirely about how raw it is.
Yeah.
And that is something that is going to translate on stage when you know it is entirely live without any other extra stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
In a way, for me personally, is so much better than seeing it in a movie. And I think some of it is just the artifice of film in some odd way kind of gets in the way of it for me. And I would say sometimes with movie musicals, that's an issue for me.
Yeah. And well, I think, and I'm telling you, I'm not going, may fall in a similar place in the narrative to Defying Gravity to Wicked. But I think if there's any song in Dreamgirls to compare to Defying Gravity in terms of content, I would go with I Am Changing, which is Effie's next big musical number after And I'm Telling You I'm Not Going. It's in the second act, and it's when in the movie when she starts, it begins with her just kind of auditioning at this club, and it gradually as the scene plays out, it becomes a proper performance. Even on just some technical levels, I thought it was similar to Defying Gravity because it ends in the same key as Defying Gravity, and the final line of the song is "Nothing's gonna stop me now."
Okay, fair enough. I would also say that "Listen," which is Dina's big song, which is an original song for this film, sung by Beyonce, is another just like really excellent musical number where she is, as we were kind of talking about, Effie doesn't do. Dina's coming into her own power and saying that like she's had enough with Curtis. And it's the first time that Beyonce in this movie is really able to let it all out vocally. They really hold her back because that's what you need for the narrative of Dina. She's not supposed to be as strong of a vocalist as Effie. So they have to have Beyonce sing softer with a little less power. And on Listen, she gets to let it all out. And I think that struck me very hard.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I noticed how they were really like saving her up throughout the movie. I was kind of surprised that Dina really was like a pretty secondary character for a lot of the first, maybe like third of the movie.
Maybe even more.
Yeah. I would say almost
until the
pretty
time
much
jump.
to the very end.
Yeah. I mean, it was not until, at least in what I noticed, not until the song Dreamgirls comes up that you really see her kind of front and center.
Because that's when she actually does like have the job in the narrative of you're the lead singer now. Is when Dreamgirls comes in.
I also think watching this movie in 2024 it's like hard to imagine that Beyonce is not going to be as prominent as she is. I think, there's a little bit of that happens, but I'll say this too. I was going to save this for later, but Curtis has that Bond villain moment when they're eating dinner and he's like, I moved Effie out of the lead singer position and moved you in because I wrote this. Her voice had, quote, no personality, no depth, except for what I put in.
Trying to say that to Beyonce.
I was just going to say, I think that might have had some more truth to some extent with Diana Ross, because she does have, I think, a very specific sound, but not Beyonce. It just doesn't work.
Even when she's trying to hold back, like
Thank you.
In the making of, they do talk a little bit about this. How how the scene in the movie where they're recording and Effie's singing too loud and they keep having to go in and be like, Effie, be quiet.
Yeah.
They essentially, in like a less confrontational way, have to do that with Beyonce throughout all the pre-recording in this movie because she's just so powerful and it doesn't work for the narrative. And so they keep having to go in and be like, please sing softer.
Yeah, I think that when they were casting the movie, they initially didn't want someone with the existing popularity that she had.
But she approached them.
Right.
So, and she really wanted this role, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I think she's pretty good in it.
I think she's very effective.
My only other experience watching Beyonce in a movie, I think
Was
is
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers Goldmember.
Oh, because
And-
mine was the Pink Panther.
Pink Panther, yes.
So I've only seen the old ones.
Yeah.
I've not seen the newer ones.
I saw the first of the new ones in theaters.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
same for me.
Yeah.
Going back to this movie, whatever your feelings are on, and I'm not telling you as a song in the narrative, we can't deny that is the scene that gets Jennifer Hudson her Best Supporting Actress Oscar.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the scene and it's the song that I think has made this show a thing.
Yeah, totally. It's the only thing I knew from this show.
I don't want to speak out of school, and I say this because I might not be the best person, I think, to make this point, but I have heard some anecdotal accounts, I think, of what I'm going to try to explain here. That line is like, the best man I've ever met. Like, whether or not that's true, there's something in this song and how viscerally it's sung that, like, this could never be spoken. It has to be like screamed and sung from like the depth of somebody. And this is where the anecdotal point, I guess I'm going to try to mention here, is going to come in, which is I think that type of release is something that is particularly cathartic for Black women and Black audiences who I think, historically in America and in all walks of life in the music industry, as it's shown in this film, had to experience a certain amount of marginalization that I think just would break most people.
Yeah.
And so to see Effie standing in her feelings, whether they're right or wrong, is such a powerful thing. And I think it's something that's pretty well captured in the movie.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think this song works really well if you separate it from Curtis.
Got it.
And I think because of the exact reasons that you're talking about, because I think just if you take out the like, you're the best man I've ever known kind of part of it, and you just go with like, and I'm telling you I'm not going, and kind of the refrain of that, then that could be about a lot of things. I have a place here.
Yeah.
And like I am establishing myself, and I'm not going anywhere, and you're not going to get rid of me because I deserve to be here as much as anybody else.
Yeah. And we had a whole thing about family before.
Yeah.
And I made a sacrifice in order for this whole thing to happen.
Yeah.
And now you're going to, shut me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's something about, I think, in my opinion, lack of chemistry between Jennifer Hudson and Jamie Foxx that I think made it feel weird to me.
Sure.
But I'm sure that it could work with different actors, and I'll bet it works on stage.
Cool. Yeah. And it's, something, we're talking a lot about this specific number, but another thing to consider when assessing Jennifer Hudson's prowess as a singer and as an actor here is that this is her film debut.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And,
again, she's the introducing.
And she's like 24 or 25 when they're making this.
That's wild.
It's totally wild. And she had some exposure before then with primarily via American Idol. I think that she was seen by people casting the movie and like fans following the process as kind of a shoo-in for the role.
But they
of
do a
Effie.
huge casting call, open call for this role. They audition thousands of Effies.
I mean, this movie is her story.
Yeah.
It's like her coming back into the fold at the very end is kind of the emotional lift that this movie needs. And if you really trace the line through this film and this story, it's her story through and through. So you got to get that right.
Which is why I want to ask is it category fraud for her to go in supporting?
On some level, I think it kind of is because, I actually read that early on in the award season campaigning for Dreamgirls that she was initially considered a lead actress and that she was bumped down by the people campaigning to supporting, and there were people upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer Holliday, who originates the role on Broadway, she wins the Tony for lead actress.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very interesting. Obviously, this is an adaptation. We don't know how maybe Effie's role is bigger in the stage production. As you said, it's her story.
Yeah.
If she is not the lead in this, who is?
Right.
Well, I
asked Dougie, and he said Jamie Foxx.
Yeah,
and I'm like, sure, I
could-
guess.
It is in a lot of ways Curtis's life decisions that are
Yeah,
a part of
he propels
everything that
the
happens.
plot.
But
Yeah.
I feel on some level like Curtis is a lead character in this story the same way that Randall Pink is in Dazed and Confused,
Yeah.
where it's kind of the glue.
comparison I didn't think we would ever get.
I just came up with it right
No,
now.
sure.
But it's like, the narrative glue that ties everyone together, but like as an emotional center, I mean, I think it works better in Dazed and Confused because, he's part of a huge ensemble, but there's not a ton there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your point about an ensemble does make it kind of hard because I can see in the nebulous way that some of these things are decided upon how this movie feels more like an ensemble
Yeah.
than a movie with very clear-cut leads.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the only time this has happened where there's a lot of discussion of like, is this supporting actor it actually giving a supporting performance? Like relatively recently, I think of Judas and the Black Messiah.
Right,
Like that was a
right.
big conversation at that time.
And in reverse, we talked a little bit last year about Killers of the Flower Moon with
Yeah.
Lily Gladstone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, where it's like, considered a lead role. And I honestly do support calling her a lead actress, but in a, amount of screen time that usually, and in a place in the narrative that usually would go to a supporting character.
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because I kept being like, I think she should probably be in supporting. And she probably has a similar amount of screen time in that movie to Jennifer Hudson. I think Jennifer Hudson may have more.
I think she does have more.
But in this,
I would, yeah.
But in this,
It's a much longer movie. I just realized.
That's true. But in the sense of like, for a good part of the movie, Lily Gladstone's character is incapacitated.
Yeah.
So she's not in much of the second half for that reason, and
Yep.
Jennifer Hudson is not in much of the second half of this movie for different reasons. But I did look at like who was she up against for supporting, and who would she have been up against in lead? And I have to say, lead is a lot more stacked.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because
I'm sure it is.
Helen Mirren wins this year, and the other four nominees are Penelope Cruz, Judi Dench, Meryl Streep, and Kate Winslet.
Penelope Cruz. Oh, and Wolverine. I love Wolverine.
Tough
She's
competition.
so good in that movie. Yeah.
So that's a difficult category
Also,
to win.
Meryl Streep and The Devil Wears Prada.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wild.
There we go.
And then, but I don't think that they knew there were going to be all these competitors when the campaigning began, because the campaigning for Dreamgirls, even though it was released in December 2006, the campaigning began a lot earlier because it had a successful test run, and it wasn't the full movie. It was just clips of it that showed at Cannes in May.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the fellow supporting actress nominees, I mean, you have Adriana Barraza in Babel, Rinko Kikuchi also in Babel.
Have you guys seen that movie, by the way?
No.
No.
I have not. And
I
I'm
haven't
meaning to.
seen any of these except these others except Little Miss Sunshine. You're
Yes.
going to continue listing.
But yeah, then it's Kate Blanchett in Notes on a Scandal, which I haven't seen, but then Abigail Breslin in Little Miss Sunshine. And if I had to choose anyone else in this category for the award to go to, I could get behind Abigail Breslin too.
But I haven't seen any of the others, and it sounds like you haven't seen any of the others.
which is also a fair point.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I love how you're like, the only other one I would give it to is the other
Only one that you've
performance I've
seen.
seen.
But what I mean more by that is that Abigail Breslin is amazing in that movie.
she's very
Yeah.
good in
She's-
that. Is she giving an Oscar-winning performance?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would agree. She's very good in
She's
that movie.
very cute.
Yeah.
The final notes of that movie, she pulls off incredibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have seen Notes on a Scandal.
Okay.
Kate Blanchett is incredible in that movie.
She's
Okay.
incredible in everything.
Judi Dench is also amazing. That movie is an incredible two-hander. Very worth watching, by the way.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Looking at this, not having seen Babel, I feel totally cool with Jennifer Hudson winning. Of what the movie's asking of her, Julian, you brought this up too. This is her film debut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's really carrying this movie.
I think
Yeah.
she is very good in this. I think she does deserve this award. I think there are years where this would be a more stacked category where
Yes.
maybe I would not feel that way. But having only seen Little Miss Sunshine from this list, I definitely would prefer, my vote would go to Jennifer Hudson.
Yeah.
And, maybe I'll get around to these others and can make a more informed decision overall. But I agree with you. I think from this, she is the most deserving. If she was in lead, I don't know. I might feel differently. I haven't seen any of those movies except Devil Wears Prada.
Oh man,
I haven't even seen
Judi
that yet.
Dench and
I
Penelope
really
Cruz.
want to see Volver. That's so high on my list right now.
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that Penelope Cruz is phenomenal
Yeah,
in it.
she's great in that movie.
Yeah.
I want to take a second and talk about another race in the Oscars for
Yeah.
that year for supporting actor.
Yes.
We have mentioned him before. Jimmy Thunder Early was portrayed by Eddie Murphy in a turn that is pretty incredible. Like, he's very, very effective in this movie.
I like
Yeah.
him in this a lot.
I do too. I think he's really showcasing pretty much everything that he has in his bag. He won a Golden Globe for his portrayal of Jimmy Early in this movie. He was the front runner, I think, to win this, and it went to another actor from a film that we've all seen from that year, Little Miss Sunshine.
Alan Arkin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've actually seen all of these movies I'm looking at here.
I've seen 3 of them.
Jackie Earle Haley, Jimon Hansu, Mark Wahlberg, Alan Arkin, and Eddie Murphy. This is a little tough.
It is a little tough.
Challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have gotten behind Eddie Murphy getting this, but I do think Alan Arkin is a deserving winner there. I feel like nominating Mark Wahlberg for The Departed, that's a little bit of like a place filler. That's not like a role I watch and think like this is something I'd put into Oscar consideration.
I got to admit, okay, I want to take just a quick moment to talk about The Departed. I really like The Departed.
I do too.
Good movie. I want to bring up one thing that happened in the Oscars the year before. So in the Oscars that took place in 2006 for films that were released in 2005, there was a winner for Best Original Song.
Oh, this is not where I thought it was going.
3 6 Mafia for their song In Hustle and Flow.
Yeah.
The host, Jon Stewart, said very pointedly after that win, 3 6 Mafia 1, Martin Scorsese 0.
Oh.
I remember when that happened, and it was a big deal. People were talking about this a lot. I think that The Departed got an enormous bump from the
This is
outcry.
all Jon Stewart's fault.
This is all Jon Stewart. There was a real conversation, I think, that came out about the fact that Martin Scorsese's had all these cracks.
I mean, we're still having this conversation. You brought up Lily Gladstone 10 minutes ago.
Exactly. But The Departed, the very next year, is the year where all of this just falls into place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mark Wahlberg, to your point, I think was a little bit of a recipient of that bump right there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like yet again, he is good in The Departed, but I don't think that's like a typical Oscar role. It's just good supporting character. Yeah, I mean, let's taking attention away from the competition for a moment. Let's just talk about Eddie Murphy, because I think that I feel like this movie, this may seem like an obvious comparison, but I just thought that he got like the attention for this movie that I feel like Adam Sandler gets in his better roles, which is that like, this guy is, well known for making...
Funny man has range.
Funny man has range, yeah. It's like, Adam Sandler, when he won an Independent Spirit Award for Uncut Gems, he made a crack about the critics who pretend to like him every few years. It's like, most of the movies he makes are silly comedies, and I think for this period of Eddie Murphy's career, that was true too. But then, once in a while, they get a chance to really show off their chops, and I think that this is a totally deserved nomination. And I mean, let's give credit where it's due. He won awards in several other places.
Yeah, he won the Globe. He won, I think, the SAG Award.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Eddie Murphy's really good in this. And Bill Condon said that he was thinking of Eddie Murphy and Jamie Foxx in their respective roles as he was writing the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad that he was able to get Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, something that I think is just understated about Eddie Murphy in general is that he did have a music career for a little bit.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you guys about this. How much do you know about his music career?
Very little. On the special features, he was like, I had a band once. And like, I released a couple records. I've been in a recording studio before. Like, but he really downplays it on the special features.
I've heard 2 songs that he produced. One is Party All the Time, which is like
his big
the one-hit wonder. The other one I've heard, get ready for this one, is Boogie in Your Butt.
Oh, awesome. I don't think I know that one, but that's cool.
I think he's a pretty decent vocalist, and these are challenging songs.
Oh, yeah.
They're really challenging, and I know, like, he records them separately, but the performance, like, I think he's good at the choreography. I think he's very captivating on stage. In some numbers, he also has to move the plot along where like when they're performing at whatever the venue is where they're in Miami
Yeah.
and he's like being very outwardly
Over the top.
sexual
Yeah.
and over the top and it's really like pearl clutching for the people in the audience.
Yeah.
He
I
has,
kind of like that. That was kind of a funny moment.
he
Yeah.
has to really be able to sell that. And then in the second half, when, you know, he's on stage again and is like kind of riffing with the band, the Jimmy Got
Oh, yeah.
Soul, and like eventually drops his pants. Like these are big asks for him to be able to sell those two very different scenes. It's different than just going up and, you know, singing a song.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people point to like that Jimmy Got Soul scene as like the Oscar consideration scene for that character. But one scene for me that I really loved watching was when he gets to do some much subtler acting, which is actually, I think it's like the last major scene right before that musical number where you see that like he and
Laurel
and Curtis and a few others are in a dressing room, and then they're playing Patience, the song, as a record.
Yeah.
And then Curtis is saying that like it's good, but basically it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And
because his vision is to not have music with messages. He
Right.
wants dance music.
Yeah, he just wants to make money with it, as he says outright in that scene.
Yeah. Which is also a direct correlation to Motown and what's going on.
To Barry
there
Gordy.
was a lot of pushback.
Yeah, but then like the looks on Eddie Murphy's face as, you know, he's just taking that all in, and he's like taking cocaine out of his pocket and cutting it up on the table. Like the looks on his face there were, I think, my favorite acting moments of his in the movie.
He has to convey a lot with no dialogue in that
Yeah.
scene. So yeah, I think he's good in that.
It's interesting that we are talking about his character and Effie's being recognized for awards because they kind of have a similar trajectory in that I think their characters go through the most emotional highs and lows.
Yeah.
Jimmy, the way his character reflects what could be happening to Effie,
Yeah.
I think is very meaningful.
Mhm.
And I also think, unfortunately, and this is kind of a sad thing, but the Effie analog in the real world had a much
more tragic.
much more tragic, much more Jimmy-like end.
She doesn't have the comeback
No.
that Effie ultimately is able to have.
Though she was gearing up for it.
But she's not. That's the point.
That,
though.
yeah.
She is gearing up for it. And, you know, if she had lived a longer life, you know, probably could have had a similar trajectory. But she didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, actually, while we are talking about the characters and their real life counterparts, we've gotten into a lot of this already, but I really was struck by the way that Dreamgirls operates. I'm getting this phrase from the Wikipedia entry as a film à clef.
I never heard that before you
Same
sent
here.
us this question.
I've heard it.
I like it.
But I've never used it before.
Yes, and to define that term, it means basically it's a true story told via, or a mostly true story told via fictitious facade. And I mean, there's actually a little list on Wikipedia of other movies that qualify as this. And there's a lot of good ones there. Popular favorites like Citizen Kane. One movie that we've discussed before, I'm Not There.
Mhm.
Another music movie released very close in time to Dreamgirls. But so considering this broader category, I mean, this is not an uncommon type of movie, but I was struck by how close Dreamgirls comes to a lot of its real life counterparts. We've already said there are notable differences too, but it still feels like, you know, watching the movie, they're like, we're not saying this is Motown and Berry Gordy, but it's Motown and Berry Gordy and the Supremes. I feel like it just treads close in a way that similar films don't exactly do. And like, what do you both think of this approach? Do you think that it's like that it serves the story? Do you think it's a distraction? Where do you stand on it?
I think it's an interesting choice because if a viewer has a previous relationship to the historical facts of something, they're going to engage with the film à clef in a, I want to say that
was
very
cool.
highfalutin, film à clef. They're going to have a relationship with it that's just going to be different.
Yeah.
And in talking with you guys, I realized that I think there is some payoff that I'm getting that is completely not on screen. It is purely something that I am drawing because it's reminding me of other stuff that I've created emotional connections to.
Yeah.
I don't know if this movie does it in a way that I feel is particularly earned.
Yeah.
And it's like with great power comes great responsibility. So if you're going to wield this, make sure that you are bringing people along, I think, a little differently.
Yeah, some of the people that these characters are clearly at least partially based on have, occasionally spoken to how they feel about this film and the musical, the original musical. Diana Ross was very critical of the musical,
Yeah, I
claimed
see
to
that.
have never seen the film. She thought it was appropriating her life. She's probably right. Mary Wilson really enjoyed it, said it was closer to the truth than we even know.
Yeah, that's like what Ron Howard was aiming for with Frost Nixon.
There we
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Yeah.
Smokey Robinson really did not like how the film represents Motown history. And he didn't like how Curtis, who was clearly an analog for Berry Gordy, was presented as this villainous character who dealt in like illicit activities. And
Right, that's true. There's that.
and DreamWorks and Paramount actually issued an apology to Gordy and the other alumni of Motown Records a week before the Oscars. Interesting timing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when voting closes. Even though, as they cite on Wikipedia, Berry Gordy was actually like, according to sworn court depositions from Motown executives, actually maybe did potentially, there are allegations.
He's not a saint.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think somebody...
He was highly suspected, though never proven, to have used mafia-backed loans.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's, I don't want to say the tip of the iceberg, but that's only part of, I think, what complicates Berry Gordy
Exactly.
and his legacy.
Yeah.
I think even somebody like my buddy Drew would tell you that it's a little bit complicated.
And I think
with him.
Smokey Robinson, as someone who was deeply entrenched in this and had a relationship, like a close friendship with Berry Gordy, I think
Totally.
felt the need to come to the defense of his friend.
So
Right.
another thing that this movie captured in kind of an interesting way was like if you can't beat them, join them
Yeah.
type mentality.
Yeah.
They're trying their best to sort of break into this music business that is predominantly run by white gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And they have to, by hook or by crook in this case, stake their own claim. I mean, I feel like it's set up this way that you're not meant to look at this and be like, oh, how could they be doing this?
Yeah,
it's a little bit
you're
of like
kinda
you're rooting
cheering
for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am like, wow, they have incredible luck.
I know. Yes.
I
I'm
guess
with you on that.
maybe some of these are rigged potentially, but I'm like, wow, they just
walking
go,
out with
go
suitcases.
to a boxing match with one suitcase full of money and
walking
walk out
three.
with three.
Exactly. Yep. Or like the card game or something. Same
Yeah,
deal.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
which is kinda
You would
nuts.
think if Curtis was that much of a card shark, he might be doing that more often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
maybe he does.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on the life of Berry Gordy, but I imagine in real life he is a more complicated figure than Curtis is in the film.
I think that's kind of what Smokey's trying to get to. Yes, Smokey, my good friend who I'm on first name basis with.
Smokey creating a smoke screen.
I think that's
I
my,
just
my
think of The
dad.
Office
My
with
dad
that.
has a friend named Smokey who is a musician, so I'm like, oh yeah, Smokey.
Yeah.
I think Smokey Robinson. That's kind of what he's trying to get to. Is that the movie, particularly in the second half, is like this is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Big time.
Yeah.
he is
Even
a
though
real-
at the beginning, as you pointed out, Emilio, you're rooting for them at the beginning before you kind of see what a con man he is.
Though I think if you look at Curtis as a bad guy in the movie, I don't think he's like the most distinct bad guy that you've seen in film. Like I honestly this is going to become one of those comparisons that keeps on coming up for me as I watch more things, but I felt like he was a bit of like a light version of like a Lonesome Rhodes from A Face in the Crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
totally see that. I think the movie leaves you on this note of like, he's going to recognize that he has a daughter.
Yeah, and
And that maybe he's going to have a relationship with her and try to make things better.
And the girls are back together,
Exactly.
and like Dina's not taking his shit anymore.
Exactly.
Things are gonna change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I think ultimately, the movie doesn't leave you in this place where he's an irredeemably bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm curious for you guys, how did you feel about Jamie Foxx in this movie?
I like Jamie Foxx a lot. I felt like this was a very like competent performance from him. I feel like but I don't leave this movie thinking that like if this were the only thing that I had ever seen him in, that it would have like made such a huge impression on me. I mean, I feel like, especially when he's up against people like Jennifer Hudson and Eddie Murphy in their roles, I feel like it's good, but it's not like top of the line Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine performance. I think it's a serviceable performance. I think that maybe as important as his character is, he doesn't have as much to do as a lot of these other actors that like win awards for their roles. And I was pretty underwhelmed by his singing, even though Jamie Foxx, also has a music career and is a competent musician. But I felt like kind of whenever he was singing, I was like, maybe I can skip this one.
I agree with you. I don't think that this movie gives him very much to do.
Yeah, I don't think that any of this is his fault.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, Bill Condon, when he's writing the screenplay, he has Jamie Foxx and Eddie Murphy in mind for their roles. So it really makes sense that Jamie Foxx moves right into this.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bill Condon, I couldn't help but note that this is a story about Black musicians with a primarily Black cast, written and directed by a white man. And that's also true of the original musical. And, I just was wondering if there is another director that, was active in Hollywood at this time that you guys think maybe could have been better suited to tell this story. And perhaps Bill Condon does it perfectly competently. I think, a lot of people would argue that.
Yeah.
But I was curious if you can think of anyone else who maybe could have taken this on successfully.
The name that comes to my mind, and I don't know for certain that he would have been better necessarily, but a name that comes to my mind as someone who could have done it well is George C. Wolfe.
Okay.
Who is a playwright and theater director. And I think he's mostly known in the theater world, but he's directed many movies too. And one rather recent movie that he has directed, which is also about music, is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
that, I mean, I should be clear that's the only film of his that I've seen. I'm looking at his theater resume. I don't think that I haven't seen any plays that he's directed, but he has directed some really prestigious things, like Angels in America in the early 90s. And then closer to the release of the movie Dreamgirls, he directed Caroline or Change. And then more recently, he's done things like The Iceman Cometh. And actually, currently, there's a production of Gypsy on Broadway starring Audra McDonald that he's the director of too. So he's the name that came to my mind.
Cool. Yeah, you mentioned Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and Dougie, after he finished Dreamgirls, was like, I kind of just wish I had watched Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Very different movies and different time periods, I think, and different styles of music, but, still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The name that jumped out to me as I think somebody who was working a lot at that time was F. Gary Gray.
Oh, yeah.
He had just done The Italian Job. And he also directed Jamie Foxx in the movie Law Abiding Citizen. Y'all seen that movie?
No.
Kind of good.
I've heard,
kind of sneaky good.
I've heard
Gerard
that like
Butler.
Some
it's
people didn't like that movie, but you're saying that it's like it's actually better than people think.
It's a little. It's like not a great movie, but it's like it's kind of good. It's entertaining.
Also, F. Gary Gray did Straight Outta Compton.
That's
recently.
true. Yeah, I'm thinking more specifically just like around this time period.
That's a good point.
How about you, Madeline?
So mine is Gina Prince Bythewood.
Ooh.
Of Love and Basketball and The Woman King more recently. And I thought of her specifically because a film that does come out after Dreamgirls, so it's not like it could be used as a proof of concept, but she directs this film called Beyond the Lights, which is kind of a Star is Born type movie where it's like a pop star and you're kind of following her and like her relationship, and you get a lot of like, the songs that she's releasing and things like that. So it is a very music centered film, which makes me think that she could very easily direct a musical. And she does work with Jennifer Hudson a few years after Dreamgirls comes out in The Secret Life of Bees. So this is one of those like in hindsight, I think she would have been very successful in directing this. But I understand that maybe at that time she was having success already. But some of these movies that I think would since then have proven to me that she would have been good at this hadn't come out yet.
Gotcha.
So I understand why she wouldn't have necessarily been the pick, but I would have been really interested, I think, to see her take on this story.
Yeah, I did not know that she directed Love and Basketball. That movie is a banger.
Yeah.
I need to see
good.
that.
Oh, it's very good. Yeah, it's, you know what? It's funny though, because at the time, I mentioned this a little earlier, but Bill Condon was coming off of having adapted Chicago.
Yeah, he didn't direct it, but he was the writer.
He was the writer
right?
of it, yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding is also that this had been in some form of production hell for quite some time.
Yeah, there were many potential iterations of this.
Yeah.
I mean, to go back to the connections to Wicked, I mean, Wicked is a movie like that's just now come out 21 years, I think, after it premiered on Broadway. And Dreamgirls came out 25 years after its Broadway counterpart came out.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think like the idea of development hell for a musical is not an abnormal thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, they talk a little bit on the special features about kind of how this project comes to Bill Condon. Essentially, after Chicago, after that massive success, people are basically coming to him and being like, you can make whatever musical you want. What musical do you want to make? He's like, I want to make Dreamgirls. He actually saw the original Broadway production on its opening night. So he's had like a long career of a fan of Dreamgirls.
Sure.
And yeah, Lawrence Mark, who's a producer on this film, I had a connection to David Geffen as well. And I think kind of, helps say like Bill
Grease the wheels a
Condon.
little
Yeah.
bit.
Bill Condon's like going to be able to take care of your story. Like David Geffen was very protective of these rights for a long time, which
Yeah.
is, I think, part of why it doesn't end up getting made for, you said 25 years.
Yeah.
So that's I mean, I understand why Bill Condon would want to adapt this story, and it seemed like he had connections with the right people to be able to make that happen,
And a long relationship.
and a relationship and
with
like
the show.
passion for the show
yeah,
and love of the show.
Kind of like a John M. Chu a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean,
With
Chicago.
Wicked, I should say.
Yeah, and Chicago was this huge success at the Oscars too. I mean, it won Best Picture that year, just 4 years before Dreamgirls. And Dreamgirls, interestingly, was, I think, seen as, for a lot of 2006, the favorite to win Best Picture, and it didn't even get nominated.
Yeah.
It has an interesting distinction.
Yeah.
It's the only movie, I think, up to that time that it was nominated for 8 Oscars, but Best Picture was not among them.
Nor Best Director.
There we go.
And I mean, this, I think, is an example of a term that I am borrowing from what else but Michael Schulman's Oscar Wars.
How
back.
long was it going to be until it came up?
It's back. And I didn't go back to the book and read things for this conversation, but I just remember this one phrase that he used to talk about films that were in a position like Dreamgirls was in, which is inevitability fatigue, which is when there is a favorite to win Best Picture for a long time before the Oscars happen. And then suddenly, whether it fails to get nominated or it fails to win, it doesn't get it. Other examples of this might include Saving Private Ryan, or more recently, The Power of the Dog. And in 2006, it seems like Dreamgirls was this movie.
Yeah. Would Everything Everywhere All at Once be the opposite of that?
I guess so, yeah, where it's seen as the favorite and it does get it. I mean,
and it was
Really
released so early in the year.
Yeah, upwards
Yeah.
trajectory.
Or like the
Kind of like the
Silence
Silence
of
of
the
the
Lambs.
Lambs, exactly.
that actually had kind of like a 11th hour boost, if I remember correctly from the research I did on that. But also then like Oppenheimer was pretty steadily, I think, seen as a favorite.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes people can predict correctly, other times they cannot.
For sure. Are there any little details we want to bring up about this movie that we really enjoyed or just want to bring up in general?
Well, one thing is that even though it's very brief in the movie, there is technically a little bit of guitar playing accuracy to grade.
Yeah.
I want to get into
towards
this
the
too.
beginning.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
I got some thoughts.
I'm trying to remember that guitarist's name.
His name is Tiny Joe Dixon.
Tiny
Wow.
Joe Dixon, yeah. Great character name for like an old blues guitarist.
Yeah.
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 The adjective great might not carry over to the next thing we're going to talk about, though. Yeah. Do you want to start this? Do you have any initial thoughts?
I don't have that much to say other than that I think that like more attention was paid to like accuracy of vocal depiction for him than, really showing his fingers doing much on that guitar.
I mean, as the least competent guitarist of this group, even I could tell just from the back, like just from the angle of his wrist.
Thank you.
Is like very off.
Thank you. So his index finger is actually wrapped behind the neck, very far away from the yes. I caught that in 2 instances here. I will say this: if I was the consultant on a movie and was asked to give an actor who'd like never held a guitar before just one bit of advice, it would be to hold their hand in like a blues grip. which
Yeah.
is kind of the thumb wrapped over the top, because and that index finger is so crucial for vibrato and also just kind of anchoring yourself in a pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
And it is indefensible that that was not conveyed to this guy.
But also just like it sounded like an index finger behind the back of the neck. That sounds painful.
It's very strange. What I'll say is I think you were talking about his performance was conveying more accuracy vocally. I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to go for a young BB King.
Yeah.
But like
sure.
maybe a sexy, like, yeah, I'm kind of heavy, but there's more to love kind of vibe in this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, guitar playing, pretty bad. I would give this like a D.
Yeah.
So sorry to the actor who portrayed Tiny Joe Dixon.
Yeah.
This was not a high watermark for guitar playing accuracy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there may have been a few other moments throughout the movie where you see someone with a guitar, but they didn't stand out quite like this.
This is the one that I took some time to freeze frame a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I watched a lot of the behind the scenes features. There's like 2 hours of it on the Blu-ray, which I didn't get through. You wouldn't know this just from watching the film, obviously, but the used car dealership set right next to it, if they zoom out on the production set, there is a billboard for Spike Lee's Inside Man,
Oh.
which I thought was very, very funny.
I love Inside Man.
I still need to see that.
Oh, love Inside Man.
I know you're a fan of that movie, Emilio, so that's why it caught
Thank
my
you.
eye.
Thank you so much. My estimation of Dreamgirls has gone up just the tiniest bit. I want to mention a character that we haven't really mentioned yet, which was Danny Glover's character, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked his role in this movie. We mentioned a little bit about how Curtis, in particular, is really trying to pave his way into a mostly white-run music world. And Marty is kind of like the opposite. He's the guy who, yes, wants success and a certain amount of fame for the people that he represents, but I think also has not forgotten about the little guy. I love how later in the movie it's his relationship with these black-owned clubs and the owners that is Effie's leg up back into it. And I was kind of heartened by that in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, he's an all-time great actor, and I enjoyed seeing him in the first half, but I wasn't totally sold on like the integrity of the character until the second half. When he comes back and when Effie goes to him,
Right.
kind of in her time of need. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, totally. And I think in some ways you're not supposed to totally trust him.
Exactly.
Because I think at the beginning, he is the more established manager. Yeah, you sort of see how one guy clearly passes him, but also it takes on these pretty deplorable traits.
Yeah.
And there's a level of integrity that Marty is able to still keep. And I rather like that.
I totally agree.
Yeah, he's definitely the conscience character of the movie. And to a degree, there are some moments when Cece can feel like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm about to refer to a movie that I have not seen, but there are some moments in Dreamgirls where I can totally see Danny Glover going, I am too old for this shit.
That is a good movie to see. The
Lethal
first one and
Weapon,
the second one. The second one's very good. Joe Pesci's a good added presence in the Lethal Weapon verse.
Yeah. I wanted to talk really quick. This is the last thing about the Cadillac car.
Thank you. This is the thing I want to bring up too.
I really want to talk about that. So, Cece writes this song called Cadillac Car for Jimmy and the Dreams or the Dreamettes, whoever they are still at that time. And it seems like maybe it's going to be their breakout hit, but then there's this kind of like white nonsense version, which I find so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a very real thing. It's the Pat Boonification of a lot of those race records. Yeah,
sure.
Or like, in the jazz world, I mean, all due respect to the artist, the Dave Brubeckification that could happen there.
Sure. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think Dave Brubeck is a great musician, but that was, when like say Miles Davis saw the success that someone like him could get as opposed to himself, then there was chagrin there.
But I think
this is even more so though.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of ways that I think this movie very successfully portrays this phenomenon.
Yeah, definitely does. I
and
really like
there
that.
are a lot of ways that they could have shown this happening, and I think just the fact that you see the original of Cadillac Car and then it cuts to this,
Anodyne.
like white bread version, which by the way has Laura Bell Bundy, who is a huge Broadway actor. She originates Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. She originates Amber Von Tussle in the Hairspray musical, and she is like one of the women.
Okay, one of the women there, yeah,
in Cadillac Car.
You know what I'm going to say too? We talked about guitar playing accuracy. Fittingly, it's horrible for that guy too.
Yeah.
But that might have been true in like the, whoever was playing
true.
the set.
That
Exactly.
was intentional.
Yeah. Well, yes, I would totally agree. But that is a very real thing that happened all the time to black artists, and I do love that detail was in there.
And Dougie was like, I hate this, but that's the role I would be cast in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tough.
Yeah, actually, one last thing I just thought of, when we're talking about casting, there is one person who makes a very brief appearance in the movie, but who is a notable presence, who is Loretta Devine.
Loretta Devine, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Who appears as an unnamed jazz singer who is paying tribute to Jimmy Early after he dies in the movie. And the fun fact that goes with her is that she originated the role of Laurel.
Correct.
In
Absolutely.
1981 in the stage musical. You looked like you had some other actor you were going to bring up.
Yeah. Did I do that? Did you guys catch Jaleel White in the very beginning of
I
this
did
movie?
not.
I did not catch him, no.
He's one of the guys
wild.
backstage who talks to Curtis. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I think without the glasses and that outfit, easy to miss.
He's carved out a little thing for himself otherwise, but yeah, he's definitely there. I want to mention this too. This is a little detail that aligns really nicely with the Motown history. That moment when Curtis opens Rainbow Records and the doors open, there's a whole crowd of people in front, and he asks somebody if they know how to type. And this woman walks in and he's like, wait a minute, you have these fake nails? Kind of like
They're
that.
press-ons.
They're
She just rips
press-ons.
them off.
Exactly. But this is a very real thing that happened in Motown.
Yeah.
That when they were getting off the ground, a lot of artists would come in and kind of fake their credentials to do things like type in order to just get in the building, to start relationships with people there.
Well, it really works for her.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really like that. The other thing I wanted to say just real quick, it wasn't quite seeing Ryan Reynolds show up in Dick level of oh my God moment, but seeing this year's current sexiest man of the year, John Krasinski, show up very briefly, but looking exactly like Jim.
Yeah.
In this
same
movie,
haircut.
Same exact haircut.
Alongside John Lithgow in that same
scene.
scene.
It does kind of take you out of the movie.
It does.
The casting of these two.
Yeah.
And John Lithgow's like going for it.
Yeah.
He really is. Yeah. That hairline.
Yeah, so is his wig.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all.
All right.
No, I love that.
We're feeling like some unlikely shared universe now.
Yeah, I think
believe
we are.
so.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we don't know that much about Laurel, other than the fact that she and Dina and Effie have been singing together since they were little. Well, turns out that Laurel's family isn't from Detroit. She was actually born in New Orleans. And she moved to Detroit when she was very young so that her mother could open a new branch of her successful restaurant, originally opened in New Orleans. And I gotta tell you, the story of how her mother opened that original New Orleans restaurant is very fascinating. So back in the 1920s, her mother was working night and day to save up for the down payment for her restaurant, but the powers that be were determined to keep her from achieving her dream. But fate intervenes when she encounters a talking frog at a party and is convinced in her desperation to kiss him. And this does not go as she or the frog plans, and she is turned into a frog herself. But their adventure and their attempts to return to humanity ultimately bring the two of them together. And when they're married in their own little froggy wedding, they are turned back into human form. Because turns out the frog was a prince. Crazy.
Who would have thought?
So the two of them, with all his princely money, open her restaurant, have a beautiful baby that inherits her mother's beautiful singing voice that grows up to be Laurel. Tiana's Place, the restaurant, is so successful that they soon begin expanding across the country, hence how they settle down in Detroit.
Nice.
Incredible.
Well,
this is the only other credit that I know she has,
Yeah,
which is that she's
here.
the voice of the lead
Tiana.
in Princess and the Frog.
Yes.
Yeah, that one spoke for itself.
Yes.
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
is Anika Noni Rose, who plays Laurel, who does the voice of Tiana, who is Disney's first Black princess.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. Originally, she comes from the Broadway world. She's more of a theater actor before these films, but real trailblazer.
Yeah,
I like
nice.
that. I always like the cross medium, unlikely shared universes.
I think you are the main generator of those, Madeline.
Yes, I will not let animation stop me from crossing over.
That's the spirit.
Excellent. So we see that Jimmy Early is a very talented entertainer. And in his later years as a performer, unfortunately, he falls on some harder times and starts taking harder drugs, seemingly to cope with some of his personal and professional unrealized potential. And eventually, he meets an untimely end at the hands of these illegal substances. Or does he? Okay, I noticed that in that scene where Curtis rejects the song Patience, right? His kind of like the what's going on stand-in, that song. He takes a long time to actually take any of these drugs. Like he produces them, but he doesn't actually do it in front of anybody. It's just there and people are like, oh no, how could you be doing this?
Okay.
We just see him show them to people.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they are drugs. At least I don't think that they're the drugs that we think that they are. Jimmy, yeah, he's got a hustler's attitude and he's used to living a double life, as we've discussed. I think he's also been tinkering with some chemistry in his spare time. And in an attempt to de-age himself and keep himself viable as an entertainer for longer, he stumbles upon a pretty incredible concoction that actually allows him to, for short stints of time, inhabit a younger and more vibrant version of himself, a fountain of youth, so to speak. And this scientific breakthrough is something that the world is not ready for. So in order to continue his studies under the cover of anonymity, he fakes his own death by overdose and assumes a new identity, Sherman, and begins to climb the ladder in academia to eventually settle into a research lab position at a university. And it's here where he is able to perfect his concoction and continually inhabit the figure of a much younger, energetic, and thinner version of himself, named Buddy Love, a name that his past identity as Jimmy Thunder Early would have likely appreciated.
Wow. Love that.
I have a guess. Nutty Professor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Nutty
Yeah.
Professor. Yep.
Haven't seen it, but I started to get hints.
I really like how you set this up.
Yeah.
Just saying, it might not be hard drugs.
That's
he
true.
might be tinkering with something.
No, he's just a scientist.
He has
Interesting.
incentive to seem as young and youthful and vibrant as he can.
Yeah. Well, I would like to propose an alternate fate for the character of Jimmy Early.
Okay.
So, yes, I'll borrow one thing from yours, which is that this supposed heroin overdose that he dies from is a smokescreen, a cover-up. But what if this was, okay, so yes, this is another borrowed detail, intentional on Jimmy's part. He wanted to disappear from the spotlight and reinvent himself, but he does not want to stop being an entertainer. And so what happens is he's had enough of the music industry with its two-timing and, all the struggle to stay popular and conventionally relevant. So he decides to go underground for a while. He sheds his moniker and all the glitz and glamour that he's grown used to, and he assumes a much more down-to-earth, humble persona and starts working at a record store in Los Angeles. He takes on a new name, Rudy Ray Moore, and now the artist formerly known as Jimmy Early finds his work and then has a chance encounter that gives him the idea to assume a new stage name and start coming up with these funny rhyming couplets and perform them at local venues to enthusiastic crowds. And from one thing to another, he garners quite a bit of non-mainstream success by doing this. And sooner or later, he finds himself, he's directing a movie. But not the kind of movie that Curtis Taylor from Dreamgirls might have tried to connect him to, a Cleopatra sort of thing. No, this is an underground, outside of the industry sort of movie. He has a directing career, a newfound persona with a lot of renown, and he is also, while this is going on, don't forget, he came up with these rhyming couplets. He is still an innovator in music, as a new burgeoning genre is on the rise in these late 1970s times. Do we know who this is?
This is Dolomite Is My Name.
And fucking up motherfuckers is his game.
He's really fun in that movie too. So
Yeah, and that was part of like a larger scale Eddie Murphy comeback around 2019. It was like released in close proximity to him, like returning to SNL to host.
yeah, this is kind of like his fourth moment.
Yeah.
Or his third comeback, because obviously he started off really big. I would say The Nutty Professor is kind of his first big comeback.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then I would say Dreamgirls is like his second.
Yeah.
And then I would say Dolomite Is My Name is probably his fourth one.
Combined with that SNL
third,
episode.
Yeah.
Because I think that Eddie Murphy hosted SNL episode is probably the funniest thing they've done in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And it was like a huge cultural moment. Everyone was like, he's back. He's doing it. Yeah. They got him to do it.
And there was Coming to America 2.
Yeah.
Not long after that.
Isn't it just Coming to America?
Yes. And yet another thing that reads better than it's spoken.
I love it. It's great. I think these all could very well happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All plausible.
Only thing with mine is that Rudy Ray Moore was a real person.
Confuses things a little bit, but for our purposes, no.
Only thing
We're
with
good.
mine is that two people turn into frogs.
Well, I mean, you know, in a past episode, like you once suggested that Mahatma Gandhi was running Shutter Island.
That's true.
Yeah.
I forgot it. That was maybe my very first one, I think.
I think that was the first unlikely shared universe.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to that episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Look how far we've come. Any last things we want to say about Dreamgirls?
I think Dreamgirls still, it's no matter what, a fun movie to watch. I think this is part of why I like getting to discuss these movies in the way that we do, because these little fleeting thoughts that I have about assessments of quality as I'm watching it become much, this is where they become much more tangible.
Right.
And it's, often I don't even think of them myself. I'm reminded of them by things that one or both of you will say. And so I do think that, I can look at this movie a lot more critically now, having discussed it in the way that we have. But I still think that there's a lot of credit due to it. It's a lot of fun. Jennifer Hudson totally deserved that Oscar. I think, with a few reservations, Dreamgirls, good time, good movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I feel. I may have been hard on this movie at times in our conversation, but I did enjoy the act of watching it.
Yeah.
And I think the music is great. I think a lot of the performances are really good. And I agree that Jennifer Hudson deserved this Oscar. And I'm really excited to see where she can continue to go.
Mm-hmm.
She actually does have a fairly limited filmography.
She really does, yeah.
So, I mean, she's still young. She's got a lot of time.
She's an EGOT winner. She has a very robust career already.
She has a robust career with a limited filmography, which is, I think, fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think it shows that she has the potential to kind of do anything she wants.
Yeah.
So she has a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For
What
sure.
about you?
Yeah, I will say I always love getting to talk about movies with you guys.
Yeah.
I've been going through such a Motown kick over the last couple days, and it's just reminded me of how much I really like the source material.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer the source material over what I saw in this movie by a kind of wide margin, but that's not to say that this movie doesn't have its highs. I think this movie has some really high highs. I think it has some things that it does really well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when I would see this movie again.
Yeah, same here.
But I had a great time talking about it with you guys.
Totally.
And it made me think of all the wonderful Motown music that's out there.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Drew, for bringing all that into my life in the first place, or really solidifying how awesome that music is.
Cool.
Awesome.
So should we talk about what we're covering next time?
I'm pretty excited about what we're covering next time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this one has been a long time coming. And so, I mean, we are shifting away from the genre of the musical.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
We plan on being back.
So, we're shifting away from that genre, but we are staying in the period piece realm as we continue talking about movies with winners in the supporting actor and actress categories. And so now we're going to look about a decade before the release of Dreamgirls to a classic neo-noir that some of us still have yet to see, LA Confidential.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Released in 1997. This movie's got a pretty stacked cast.
Yeah.
Really, really fun to get into. Kim Basinger is the Best Supporting Actress winner that I think has kind of anchored this movie in this position for us to discuss.
I'm really excited to talk about it and to see it. I've
Yeah.
never seen it. I have maybe no knowledge of this movie. other than it's been hyped up to me by you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm very excited to see it too. I know a few other people who have hyped it up to me, but I've heard nothing but great things about this movie.
Yeah, we'll find out how we really feel. We'll find out if I still think it's a great movie next time we talk.
Totally.
All right.
In addition to this podcast, you can follow us on Instagram. And if TikTok still exists when this is released, you can also follow us there at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can contact us via email. We would really love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. If you're on Letterboxd, you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold. If you're listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. If this is the second or third or 30th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We've really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots, You can tell a friend to tell a friend about us, the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Oh, Dreamgirls will never leave you.
Yes, that's true.
But we will.
We will leave tonight. Good night, guys.
Good night.